Welcome, Governor Powell. It's good to see you again. Thank you for taking the time with me. Welcome to your family. It's great to see you here as well. So I'm going to start with something, a little topic, a little different. President Masto of the Cleveland Federal Reserve gave a speech earlier this month where she noted that more immigration is needed to drive the U.S. economy at a time when the population is aging and productivity is stalling. Governor Powell, do you agree with President Masto that we need more, not less, immigration to help drive our country's long-term economic growth?
Senator, as I mentioned earlier, the size of the labor force is an important determinant of our potential growth over time. Labor force growth is really slow these days. It's about 0.5%. You go back 30 years, it was 2.5%. So it's a big reason why our economy has slowed down, and immigration has been a real contributor to that. Having said that, immigration is another one of those issues that's really not in our lane, and really those decisions are for you and your elected colleagues.
No, I appreciate that, but we've been talking about growing the economy, and part of your purview is labor, and I appreciate your comments that immigration is an important part of that labor force that grows our economy, so thank you. As chair of the Fed's committee overseeing the Federal Reserve Bank's operations, including the presidential search processes, we have seen some improvement in the diversity of the regional bank presidents, the boards of directors, the bank's workforces, and better interactions with advocacy groups in the bank's communities. If confirmed, what will you do to increase the diversity of the leadership, workforce, and opinions in the Federal Reserve System?
Thank you. As I mentioned, I am a big supporter of the Federal Reserve System and also of diversity. I think we make better decisions when we have diverse voices around the table, and that's something we're very committed to at the Federal Reserve, both at the Board of Governors and in the reserve banks. So, and that's something I've been deeply involved in during all my time there, and I would say that, so I've had a chance to, this is something people have been working on for decades now, and you begin to see what works. And so my view of what works is a lot of private companies have been very successful in advancing diversity, and what seems to work is to have a holistic plan that you stick with over a long period of time, and it's about recruiting, it's about going out of your way to bring people in. Once they're in, it's about giving them paths for success, and it's about having an overall culture and company that is very focused on diversity and that sticks with that focus for a long period of time. That works. It's not something you can do overnight. You mentioned the Reserve Bank president searches. Right. That's something that I have been responsible for. I assure you, we always have a diverse pool of candidates.
And I agree, and I appreciate that's not just check the box. It is a cultural change that is constant. So thank you for your comments there. Congressional Republicans are set to pass, as we've discussed today, a tax cut bill geared towards large corporations. At the same time, this committee is about to consider legislation to roll back rules for some of the nation's largest banks. What can you do at the Fed to ensure that this tax windfall and this deregulation actually benefits workers and doesn't just translate into more executive bonuses and stock buybacks?
Well, our tools are what they are. So we have monetary policy, which can shove the economy in the direction of stable prices and maximum employment, and we have regulatory policy, which can ensure safety and soundness of institutions. When institutions become more profitable, just taking your suggestion, some of that is going to go to shareholders, some is going to go to customers, some is going to employees. So, but we don't really have tools that affect the distribution of profits.
Right, and so, but you do have a component of consumer protection.
We do.
And you do have a concern about the workforce and growing that workforce and make sure there's a strong workforce, correct?
Yes.
So part of the concern that I'm hearing, and I really haven't heard a lot of that discussion, is what you're going to do to address specifically those consumer protection issues, and particularly also protecting the workers and that workforce.
Okay, consumer protection we haven't actually talked much about. So we've been assigned an important role in consumer protection. We take it very seriously. I'm committed as chair, as I have been as a governor, that with responsibility for our budgets, that consumer protection will have the resources it needs to do its job. Whatever Congress assigns us, we will try to do well and aggressively, and that's my undertaking to you.
I appreciate that. And I know my time is running out, and I will submit the rest of my questions for the record. But I like many of my colleagues, do have concerns. I come from Nevada. Dodd-Frank was there for a reason, because we had a horrific crisis, as you well know. We talked about this. And the deregulation of Dodd-Frank and many of these regulations that were put in place to protect individual consumers are so important. And I'm concerned about rolling back any regulations that is going to open that door and lessen any type of consumer protection, any type of work that we have done, particularly in Nevada, across this country to protect individuals. So look forward to having further conversations with you with respect to the idea of tailoring your regulations as well. Thank you. Governor Powell, large banks have been fined a combined $160 billion since the crisis, yet recidivism continues and regulators have been very reluctant to impose harsher penalties. Take, for example, Wells Fargo, which has a new scandal that arises, it seems, every week. Do you view the post-crisis response on the part of regulators towards the largest banks as being too harsh?
Well, I guess I would I would regard the fact that we're still seeing things like what you referred to in the paper as very disturbing. I don't think I would characterize our reaction to these kinds of problems as too harsh. I do think it's appropriate that we strike a professional tone in our supervision and regulation of financial institutions, and we always strive to do that. But no, my main reaction to what you referred to is one of concern that institutions are still having problems with bad behavior, bad conduct toward consumers.
So can we then address the issue, and I'm looking at this as well, but the conversation that you just had with Senator Brown regarding stress testing and the changing of the threshold, which would then diminish any type of stress tests for Wells Fargo as well as Bank of America and some of the others. Is that true, the way you read the bill?
No, I don't think it would have any effect on stress testing for Wells Fargo or the other larger institutions. It would only affect institutions between 100 and 250 billion in assets.
It wouldn't impact them domestically, their domestic operations here?
No, it would not. That'd be my understanding.
If it did, would you have concerns?
It would depend on what the effect would be, but I don't see any case for legislation of that nature that would affect the largest and most complex institutions.
Thank you.